Hi, it's Dwyer, gamblersadvisory.com, dwyervip.com. Now let's just consider this to be an online sports bar, right? We're just sitting around, we're discussing sports, right? If you want to consider me to be the bartender listening to everyone, then consider me the bartender listening to everyone. Let's talk about Canelo, right? Because quite frankly, boxing fans have a voice. If we yell loud enough, sometimes the fighters hear us. Sometimes the fighters will make decisions based on what they think the public wants. Let's talk about Canelo. Let's talk about his next move, because it's critical. Now, Canelo's only 22 years old. In my eyes, he's at the same fork in the road that David Price was, the British heavyweight, a few months ago. Right? There are some parts of Canelo's game that an elite fighter might think, rightly or wrongly, that he can exploit. Right? Certain things leap out at you on film that make Canelo look like he could be vulnerable to certain types of fighters. Right? The first thing is stamina. Canelo isn't high volume. He threw less than 450 punches against Austin Trout, right? And he takes off parts of rounds. I believe that some fighters out there, especially those with high work rates and stamina, might feel that they can jump on Canelo early, bank some early rounds, and then, of course, have him go low volume later in the fight, keep him at the end of a jab, and win the decision. Understand, Austin Trout, as it was, threw literally hundreds more punches than Canelo in their recent fight, right? So, just like with David Price, where there were issues, right, in terms of Price's ability to handle certain things in the ring, as well as questions about Price's ability to go 12 hard rounds, right? The kind of 12 hard rounds we would expect him to have to possibly encounter against a Vitaly or a Vladimir Klitschko, right? And of course, there were questions about David Price's ability to fight inside, as well as David Price's ability to fight with his back up against the ropes. Now, I've said here online that in my opinion, there is no such thing as a tune-up fight in boxing. In other words, once you're in a position to challenge those at the very top, in my opinion, it's foolhardy to then take on seasoned veterans like not just a Tony Thompson, but an Audley Harrison, right? I know it worked out against Harrison for David Price, right? It didn't work out against Tony Thompson. One also wonders what would have happened if Harrison didn't get dispatched in the first round, right? Now let's talk about Canelo. There's some dangerous fighters all around him at 154 pounds, right? In fact, there are dangerous fighters all around him also at 147 pounds. These guys are immensely talented. For one reason or another, a bad decision, a broken jaw, an injury, certain fighters haven't had the opportunity to get to the level that Canelo is right now. But they're still very dangerous. Let me give you an example, right? Some of these guys right now are trying to rebuild their careers. They might look like easy marks, but they're not. Let me name a few, right? Amir Khan. I understand Khan is 2 divisions down, but Khan's a tall guy. Right? Khan could easily fight at 147. I get the feeling that if you were to tell Amir Khan, hey, you have a shot to fight Saul Alvarez, Khan, knowing that he has a huge hand speed advantage on Saul Alvarez, might well come up to 150 to fight it, right? Now, Amir Khan, sure, has had rough moments in the ring, right? He got bullied by Lamont Peterson. He got dispatched by Danny Garcia. But at the same time, we've also seen Amir Khan against big hitters like Marcos Maidana look good. He has charisma, right? He has very fast hands. He can throw to the body in the blink of an eye. Just ask Maidana, who got dropped off a body shot. I think Amir Khan's too dangerous right now. I think Victor Ortiz is too dangerous. Keep in mind, I know it's popular right now to badmouth Victor Ortiz. The bottom line is that Victor Ortiz dropped Lamont Peterson twice. Let's revisit that fight. Victor Ortiz was beating Jose Cito Lopez when his jaw was broken, and Ortiz decided that his health mattered. I can't blame him, right? Victor Ortiz also got knocked out by Floyd Mayweather, but that was a weak knockout, right? Because time had been called. Joe Cortez was looking outside of the ring, Cortez being the referee. Perhaps they said time in, but certainly Victor Ortiz was not fully prepared, right? He didn't have his hands up. I believe both he and Joe Cortez were in between round mode. Only Floyd Mayweather realized what was going on at the time. At 154, wow, those are shark-infested waters. I don't care how awkward he's looked in fights. I don't care how long he's been outside the ring. James Kirkland is always a problem, right? At a minimum, we know that if Kirkland is up in your face, you've got to do something. There was talk of a Canelo-Kirkland fight earlier, right? I guarantee you James Kirkland's not afraid of Saul Alvarez, right? Carlos Molina, one of my personal favorites. I think Molina has few peers inside. Keep in mind, Molina fought Erislandy Lara, fought him to a draw, right? Molina's already fought James Kirkland. He was teaching James Kirkland the sport of boxing before we got your typical fluke ending in boxing and Molina got disqualified, right? I think Molina is exactly the kind of fighter who could expose a young guy who surprised all of us. Think about it, all of us. We're expecting less defense from Canelo. He surprised all of us by just showing us some defense against Austin Trout, against a seasoned vet. All I'm saying is a young guy like Canelo who, exceeds our expectations with just some, above average maneuvers could be exposed, right? So my point to you is simply this. I know a lot of people are in Canelo's ear. Let me point out, too, another dangerous fighter, Ishii Smith, right, who came close many times to winning the title and then finally broke through and won the title. Understand, Ishii Smith has beaten Paul Wolak. You're talking about a fighter who can handle high-volume guys in his face the entire fight. I'm guessing Ishii Smith's eyes would light up if suddenly he's fighting a guy who's low volume, who actually is there trying to box him. So, my advice is to Canelo is don't make the mistake David Price did. David Price's career has been set back several years. I was here online after David Price beat Audley Harrison, and I said if I were Price, since his name is hot, in the moment, at that time, I would try to fight a Klitschko. Why not? At the time, Price was, just like Canelo, unbeaten. All I'm saying is when you're a big hitter, you always have a puncher's chance in a fight. David Price, had he fought a Klitschko, would have been one punch away from being heavyweight champion of the world. Right? Let me go one step further. If you're an unbeaten fighter, and you take on a guy at the top of the mountain, and you lose, people are going to say, you know what? At least I know he was not afraid to take on the guy at the top of the mountain. And everyone understands when a fighter loses to the champ or loses to a guy at the top and needs to regroup. No one begrudges a fighter for taking on the biggest challenge possible. So, Saul Alvarez, you need to stay away from the Ishii Smiths, the Carlos Molinas, the James Kirklands, the Erislandy Laras, the Vanis Martirosyan, the Robert Guerreros. Should Guerrero beat Floyd Mayweather? The Victor Ortizes, the Amir Khans, the Zab Judahs. All I'm saying is Zab Judah would have a decided hand speed advantage. I'm not saying Judah beats Saul Alvarez. But what I am saying is, Lord knows Judah fights everyone, and he has the ring savvy, and he has the hand speed to make even a Floyd Mayweather look bad in the early part of their fight. So if I'm Canelo, here are the fighters who I would aim for right now. And let me just say too, Canelo has a big feather in his cap. He's young. So if he loses to an elite fighter, the narrative, the storyline will be too much too soon, right? He'll come back. We'll still be riveted by him. So obviously the first person Saul Alvarez should target is the person he is targeting. Let's start at the top. Let's start at the best pound for pound. Let's start at an almost certain Hall of Famer. In fact, he is a certain Hall of Famer. The man who beat Juan Manuel Marquez handily. And that's Floyd Mayweather. Right? I think Mayweather is the matchup for Saul Alvarez. We already know that. Alvarez wants to be the best pound for pound. Right? Mayweather is within his weight range. Right? Alvarez is the champ at 154. Believe it or not, Mayweather has been the champion at 154. Mayweather also fights at 147. That fight can easily be made if the parties are willing. If they're not, for whatever reason, and this is boxing, right? You have many big-time guys who never fought each other, right? If it doesn't happen for whatever reason, then in my opinion, Saul Alvarez needs to be more ambitious. He needs to go to 160, and he needs to fight Sergio Martinez. Let me agree with Juan Manuel Marquez. I believe that Sergio Martinez, like Floyd Mayweather, is one of the benchmarks of the sport. Understand, Martinez is such a warrior that he actually offered to lose weight to fight Floyd Mayweather. I'm guessing, given that Canelo just pulled around 40,000 people in San Antonio, I'm guessing that Canelo has enough box office pull to convince Sergio Martinez to lose a few pounds so that they can fight at a catch weight to make the fight happen. Quite frankly, I think a catch weight would be a joke. I don't support any catch weight. I would rather Saul Alvarez be a man about it and say, Mr. Martinez, I'm here for your title. Let's fight at 160 because I don't want there to be any asterisks, any excuses should I win the fight. I want the belt. I want everyone to know that I've earned the belt. Right now, understand, Martinez, like Austin Trout, is a southpaw. Martinez is about 5'10", roughly the same height as Canelo. Canelo walks around at 168, 170 something, right? On fight night, Canelo typically gains a lot of weight. He's normally bigger than middleweight. I don't see why he shouldn't shoot to fight one of the very best in the sport pound for pound. I'd prefer to see that fight than Martinez against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. Been there, done that. Quite frankly, Martinez had won that fight by a wide margin. The only suspense was the last round when Martinez got a little bit cocky and dropped his hands and got caught. Right? That's the only suspense. I think Martinez, again, handily beats Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. I would rather see him against Canelo. Let me also say, too, that I believe that fight would have special significance because I'm sure, there's an age dynamic. Martinez is in his late 30s. Canelo's in his early 20s. I'm sure it's a big challenge to Sergio Martinez to fight an unbeaten fighter and to try to get his unbeaten record, right, stopped. And I also think, too, just on a boxing culture standpoint, Martinez has already beaten Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He can then take on Saul Alvarez. I believe there'd be a lot of Mexican pride. I think the idea would be that Sergio Martinez is, in a sense, invading the country from a boxing perspective, taking on two of the country's best fighters, right? The reason why I say two of the best is I'm not sure if I would place anyone over Juan Manuel Marquez, and obviously Mexico has many, many, many other great fighters. The last guy might be a bit of a shock, but I actually believe this is the time for that fight to happen. And that's 168-pound champion Andre Ward. My point is simply this, and don't get me wrong, I'm calling for the fight. I personally would take Ward if the fight happened, right? But you want to be the best pound for pound. If you're a fighter who has weighed 168 on fight night for some fights, right? Has gained weight, has the kind of frame that carries weight, is very solid, right, for a 154. If you're a guy who knows that when you're not training, you actually are a super middleweight, then what better fight to have than a fight for the super middleweight championship, especially when Andre Ward has been out of the ring for a while. And Andre Ward is coming back from surgery. He's coming back from injury, right? Also, just think about the possibilities. Andre Ward has already conquered his division. How much so? Froch Kessler is a huge fight. Andre Ward's already beaten Froch. Andre Ward's already beaten Kessler. I mean, Andre Ward has beaten so many guys. He's beaten light heavyweight champion Chad Dawson. So if you're Canelo and you're going for legacy, why not do a Sugar Ray Robinson move? Jump out of your weight class entirely. Take on an unbeaten champion in a battle of unbeatens. Understand, those are the fights that always generate huge box office in boxing. Whether it's Ali, Joe Frazier, the first fight, Battle of Unbeatens. Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks, Battle of Unbeatens. Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, Battle of Unbeatens, right? A possible Canelo Floyd Mayweather fight, Battle of Unbeatens. Here, it would be a Battle of Unbeatens, and let me just say, Canelo would probably be a 2, 3, or 4-1 underdog. If he were to win that fight, he would shock the world. If he loses that fight, we would all say, you know what? He took a chance. He fought a guy way out of his weight class, right? He did a Hank Armstrong, another legendary guy, right? Also, the fight's intriguing because Andre Ward doesn't have the reputation of being a puncher at 168. So even though the fight is out of Canelo's weight class, it's not like he's fighting a big puncher who's going to beat him up and possibly end his career, right? And were he to win, think about it. That opens the door to a whole list of new opponents. Froch, Kessler, you name it. James DeGale, George Groves. Suddenly 168 would be the hot spot on the block. So if I'm Canelo, I don't make the mistake David Price made. I swing for the fences. In fact, dare I say, his fight against Austin Trout was so memorable, really was my favorite fight of this year, that if I'm him, I stay out the ring until I get the right fight. Why risk it? You're only unbeaten once, right? You have a bad night, you get a loss, your unbeaten streak is over. If I'm Canelo, I say, okay, I'm going to fight Floyd, I'm going to fight Sergio, I'm going to fight Andre Ward. Bring it, right? Those are the guys I would fight. I would sit back and I would say, okay, fine. If Robert Guerrero beats Floyd, I stay away from Guerrero. Understand, Guerrero's so dangerous that he was Juan Manuel Marquez's mandatory for a long time. And Marquez did not take that fight. Dare I say, he is Marquez's Manny Pacquiao, right? It just didn't happen, right? If I'm Canelo, I stay away from Manny Pacquiao. Too much hand speed, right? If that fight goes south, it would go south big, right? So if I'm him, I swing for the fences. Arguably the top 3 fighters in the sport pound for pound are Floyd Mayweather, Sergio Martinez, and Andre Ward. Those are the 3 guys I would target right now. Canelo's a huge puncher. If he lands on any of the 3, he could get the kind of knockout that our grandkids are hearing about, right? He would be so big, it would be preposterous, right? If he hops in the ring with any of the 3 and he gets schooled, then the narrative would be that he fought a master, right? Either, an Olympic gold medalist and Andre Ward, or 2 guys in their mid-30s who had been in the game a very long time, right? That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. As I said, this is a sports bar. The real action in these videos is in the comment section. Let me hear from you. Who should Saul Alvarez fight next and why? Leave your comments. Thanks for stopping by.